The Crotonians taught me the profoundness of creating life. Although similar, the Tilapis had a different tale to tell. This is my journey with the Tilapi peoples and their endeavor to live off the grid. Tilapis are excellent woodcutters, herders, and bow wielders, so I wanted to highlight these key industries during this run. They also enjoy round buildings, even more so than Crotonians, hence my decision to build gridless, following the natural roads as much as I possibly could. They also have no care for space nor lighting, meaning we could build as dense as we like in the dark forest. The plan to reach 100 population was simple. We begin with an intelligent pasture first opener, followed by the standard set of services into carpentry and hunters. We even dabbled in woodcutting to upkeep our carpenters. This start was fairly reliable, although perhaps not as good as the goated carpenter first build order, but I hadn't discovered it at the time, so this served me just fine. Once we reached the level of Amarir, our lovely neighbors gave us some much appreciated welcoming gifts. Since we had plenty of resources, I decided to build a research lab and trade our excess goods for clothing. With our foundation secured, it was time to dip into research. I researched stages and graveyards and completely forgot about the former until much later in the run. Upon reaching 100 population, we found ourselves with almost a year's worth of food, exceptionally poor, and with 29% unemployment. Yikes. Prior to combating our unemployment, I chose to seek a trade partner, then researched better roads, the food stall upgrade, and fight pits. The Ocean Man of the past chose to occupy the rebels' time with entertainment, rather than give their idle hands meaningful work to accomplish. They were understandably discontent with the decision until it was built. After placating the masses, I finally employed them into additional research labs and pastures. At 150 population, the need for larger pastures revealed itself, leading to the creation of the first of our village's huge, iconic, circular pastures. With the remainder of our unemployed, I created more forestry and carpentry. Upon reaching 200 population, although we had 3 seasons worth of food, we were still flat broke, but now with a lower 13.5% unemployment rate. We then secured a second trade partner before moving on to our next objectives. We were now beginning to make traction in terms of wealth, so we needed to train some troops to defend our land. I opted with the obvious route of archers. Tilapis are naturally talented at archery and also enjoy a bonus in bow making it an easy choice. Rather than importing weapons, as I would usually do, I began importing leather and researched bow making for us to begin our venture into arms manufacturing. Our manpower was now strained because of the commissioning of 50 soldiers, but this was quickly remedied through the appointment of Clemency Du 85 as our Master of Livestock. This had an immediate positive effect on Tilapi immigration, enticing scores of new entries to our village. This must have alerted the neighboring Tilapi region, who proposed that our peoples become colleagues henceforth. I saw no reason to decline, so rather than telling them their dream, I accepted their proposal. Once at 300 population, it was time to introduce some form of proper order and laws. We had reached 350 population with almost a year's worth of food, a developing economy, and 10% unemployment. Towards 500 population, I opted to invest heavily into pastures to not have to worry about food, making use of the freshwater buff I mentioned in a while back. One of our leading priorities was to secure a domestic source of leather for use in bows and for the leather armor for guard posts. This led to the replacement of the small, original Entelodon pastures with auroch pastures. By this point, we needed an overhaul of our storage, so it was finally time to design a massive warehouse. I noticed our archers had almost fully completed their training, leading to the creation of a second unit, which were to flank and heroically backshot enemies engaged with the first unit. We then constructed tailors and researched leather armor production before enjoying our brand new warehouse. I then doubled our food rations since we were handily making enough food to upkeep our burgeoning population. This action enticed 100 Tilapis to immediately immigrate into our city, letting us reach the level of Decori, and allowing the appointment of 2 more nobles. I decided for Tosi to be our master builder, and for Purple Brave Giraffe to be our master of industry. Despite appointing our nobles and commissioning their chambers, I went against my word, opting to not produce their usual mansions, with the reasoning that Tilapis care little for space, so surely their nobles would likely happily live amongst the populace. If my mental gymnastics caused my nobles of Oceania to decide to renounce their title, I completely understand. We end this portion with 3 seasons of food, a stable economy, and 9% unemployment. On the road to 700 population, I created fruit orchards to support our procreation and ensure the sustainable growth of native-born Tilapis citizens. The upkeep is pretty low at only half a fruit per child daily. The problem lies in the procurement process, with both farms and orchards producing fruit yearly. Another issue is the adult Tilapis consuming our produced fruit instead. I decided upon this orchard design, which left room in the middle for water canals to increase fertility. Each plot has 6 rows of 7 trees at 42 trees total. The first completed orchard was set to produce fruit after 56 days, which is about 3.5 in-game years. During the wait, I expanded our clothing production to make use of our increased leather. I then finally realized that I forgot stages for the longest time. Had I done this as a series, I have no doubt that someone would have alluded to my mistake ages ago. The stages, as well as other optimizations, let us reach 700 population, with a year of food, a growing economy, and 0% unemployment. Let's take this chance to glance into the thoughts of past Oshan at the time. Just harvested these 4 orchards over here, each producing around 600 fruit. Anyway, it's not enough to offset our yearly consumption as well as feeding our children in the nursery over here. So I'm just trying to prioritize the children so that they can actually grow up to be nice and healthy. Oh, yuck. Ugh. They look like little... truly riveting. Subsequently, I was experimenting with a pasture design that incorporates culverts. If this design proved successful, all of the pastures would benefit from a redesign to improve the efficiency of our water infrastructure. What I had discovered was that the effect of culverts was limited to the freshwater access buff for pastures, meaning the amount of animals is ultimately decided by the base fertility of the ground it was built upon. Rebuilding the pasture with the culvert already set up also yielded the same result. Another important lesson as Tilapis is to make use of this housing setup. The indent of a single block produces a roundness effect at each corner. Staggering the houses like this makes them ideal for Crotonians, Garthemes, and Tilapis alike, due to their fondness for roundness. A quick glance at our treasury reveals a small fortune, growing by the day. I took this as a sign for us to leisurely produce a service block for the western area. It was at this moment I understood the true nature of the experience buff. I thought it to be tiered, meaning once one reached the 100 worker level, they would benefit from a flat bonus, with the next tier being at 600 workers. My understanding was far from the truth. How it works instead is that the buff begins at 100 workers and is tied to the overall amount of workers in an industry at any given moment, up to the limit of 600 where the buff is capped out. What this means for the layman is that to use the experience buff, you should try to reach well past 100 workers as soon as possible in your industries and stop upon reaching 600 workers in each industry. So, for example, I should have gone all in on the intelligent pastures. Then once I had 600 people working in the intelligent pastures and received the maximum experience buff, only then would I invest another 600 workers into a different industry. Finally, we reached 1,000 population. Looking back, I realized just how absolutely broken pastures seem to be. The sheer amount of resources one could procure was staggering, leading me to rethink the Tilapis' position in the world order. In my opinion, they are worlds ahead of Crotonians, able to be truly self-sufficient in making everything they could possibly want or need. They need food. They don't just get a boost to pastures and orchards, but also enjoy working there. They need housing furniture. They have a boost to forestry and can produce almost anything without penalty. They need to defend themselves. They don't just have a natural bonus to archery and movement speed, but can also work as bowmakers with greater efficiency. Not to mention their proficiency with auroch pastures to supply them with constant leather for their armor, clothing, and bows. I didn't even have to industrialize into metalworking to have this easier time. If I were to keep playing, I'd probably even import metal goods rather than ever producing them myself, using our arms trade to finance the exchange. To conclude this venture, Tilapis are much better than I initially gave them credit for. Rather than sleeping on them, I should have slept with them. Wait, that's wrong. Or is it? Thank you to all of my generous members of Oceania and you, dear viewer, for watching this video. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to watch it again. I need around 69,000 views or something to break even. Until next time. I love her, Miss Independent. Authorized by Ocean Man of Oceania.